Good afternoon, everybody from around the world. Yes, I looked at the presenters' attendee list, and people are coming into this webinar from around the world. So this is Steve Brumer from 151 Advisors, and I also have Mark from the Climate Corporation on the webinar with us. And we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so going through our latest webinar on monetizing IoT and smart agriculture. One of the things that we have really done over the last year has been to really put a lot of effort on how to make money in this space. One of the things that we're trying to do is really figure out, okay, we understand the technology is coming fast and furious, but we want to be able to look at how we can make money as vendors and suppliers in various areas within smart agriculture around the world. Mark, how are you today?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for having me.
No worries. That's great. And so I want to start off with a quick polling question. There'll be 3 of them during this webinar that allow everyone to get a better idea what's going on with you. So one of the things that we're doing is, what role at your company are you? Are you an executive, sales, business development, software technology person? And the reason we're asking this polling question right off the bat is we know really where you are within your organization and trying to figure out who we can address this to. Because based on the attendee list and the people that have signed up, we're looking at a lot of company executives as well as people that are not necessarily Smart Ag 101, so we want to make sure that we're attacking the questions that you have. So based on the polling questions, it looks like about 100% of you are within management of some sort. Oh, there we go, it's changing. So Mark, it looks like as we go through this, about 50% are executives, 25% in sales, and 25% in business development. So good breakdown of people. So let's get started. Both Mark and I have access to questions from the audience through our BrightTALK platform. So we're pretty interactive. He and I have been doing this a while. So if there are questions that pop up during the session, please reach out and ask us those questions, and we'll try and answer them and not necessarily have to wait to the end. So let's get started. So this is the agenda, what we're going to try and get through today. We're trying to focus in on what we're seeing today as far as data points are concerned, the technology, what we see as opportunities for all of us to make money in this area, and what some of the new business models may be. And then Mark's going to get into Climate Corporation and understanding a little bit more from some ideas as far as case studies are concerned and issues that he's seeing. I think Mark and I both are road warriors. He happens to be in Atlanta today. We're all over the place presenting, so we see a lot of valuable information that we want to be able to share with all of you on the journey today for the next 45 minutes. So let's get into this. Little idea who 151 is. A lot of the people on the call are familiar with us, but for some of the ones that are not, let me give you an idea of who we are. We are an international strategy, advisory, and execution-focused firm. We help companies with monetization of their products, services, and offerings in the space. And so what we're focused in on is finding new market positions, accelerating the growth of your companies and your product offerings, and being able to make sure that within the ecosystems that we have, you're driving revenue, showing value, and ultimately increasing shareholder value. So we don't build, create, or design any products at all. We help you bring your products and services to market. And if you look at some of our global clients, we have been doing this for quite a long time. We're very proud of the fact that our clients have come to us with specific needs and efforts that we help them with in being able to generate new sources of revenue, specifically around IoT and mobile and wireless. So if we were to look at us, there's, look at that good-looking group of people, Mark. It's amazing how. Mark and I, as I said, been doing this a while. Mark's got a great background in agriculture, and just wanted to be able to get a chance for both of us to be able to provide you with our insights and what we're seeing. So as we get started in this, we're going to, again, there's a lot of people on the call that have been involved in agriculture and smart ag in one way, shape, or form, and a lot of IoT experience. We didn't want to make this IoT 101 for Smart Ag 101, but we wanted to have a good base of information and a couple of different things that are going on that we're seeing. So just bear with us as we go through this, and we can continue to answer questions as we go around. So why do we think monetizing IoT in agriculture is really important? Because applying IoT in agriculture provides the, what we would say, effectiveness that you would expect from IoT. We're going to do things like reduce waste. We're going to boost the soil fertility. We're going to be able to look at being able to control crops and increase efficiency and productivity and monitor all the animals and all the products and the equipment that are on the farm. All of this is related to IoT that we're putting into agriculture and farming. And we're seeing more and more farmers look at our technology as a way of being able to do all the things that they need to increase yield. The bottom line is, if technology can increase the yields of the average farmer that's out there and corporate farmer, then we're doing our job in being able to increase the amount of food yield and increasing the amount of usage of the acres that are out there. But there are special aspects to consider with IoT in agriculture. There's a lot of outdated technologies that are in the field today. Some of that can be upgraded to be a part of the IoT world, and others cannot. And so the economics of agriculture enterprises being able to grow and develop processes and be able to look at ways of being able to do that sometimes cannot be controlled at all times. And so the economics is a big aspect of what we have to consider for why IoT is important in agriculture. Obviously, climate and weather, and Mark's company name might have something to do with our controls of climate, but and other things. But climate and weather we can't control, and that is one of the hardest things for us to be able to deal with. But as we have more data and have information about it, then we are able to be able to look at those things, add it into our data offerings, and be able to provide information that allows farmers within Smart Ag to do more with their land and be a little bit more aware of predictive weather situations and climate controls. And then seasonality, being able to make sure that the planting and the harvesting is done at the right specific time. And that is a huge part of where we go forward. One of the quick questions, yes, the deck will be available for download for everybody. So you are able to get a copy of this after we're done. So where does agriculture come from? And I know Mark and I have both seen this slide a few times, but it does give you a better general idea as to where we are today and where we've gone in history. In the old days, we can only look at, products, looking at smart products, and then getting a little bit more into farm equipment management under the product system area. And then the bigger circle is where we are today. There are just so many aspects of automation involved around agriculture today. There are so many companies that are building absolutely fantastic products and services for smart farming and allowing you to look at managing that farm through an automated system, being able to look at the data and looking at all the aspects and all the pieces of it that are that allow farmers to be able to look at the information and the data and use it to their advantage. Mark, is that what you're seeing today as far as where we are in the state of smart farming?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can think of it as farm equipment has had the ability to generate data for 10 years, but kind of the mechanism by which we did that was with thumb drives. And, we kind of plug a thumb drive in, and each piece of equipment would generate that data and store it, and then they'd take it back to their computer and they'd look at it in isolation. But what our company has done, and Deere has a solution as well, and Case is coming out with one. But once you add wireless connectivity, now all this farm equipment starts to look like IoT devices, and we get all this data streamed in real time. And like a climate, you can log in and see a dashboard of all the connected equipment, farm equipment around the world, and what it's doing, whether it's planting or harvesting or spraying or all that, and you can see it all in real time. And it just helps us start to make better decisions.
Excellent. And so if we look at where we're heading now, the sizing of precision farming is absolutely amazing. We are seeing explosive growth. It is around the world. There is absolutely no issues with this being a small market size. So if you are looking at wanting to get into this business, there's a lot of money to be made in smart ag. The amount of growth that we're seeing in Europe and Asia is astronomical as we go through the next several years. The largest market share is in North America. And we believe that because of technology, we're able to grab a lot more of it from the companies in the U.S. that are making this technology. All right. We look at where we see agriculture IoT. This growth, from a dollar standpoint, is going to over double in the next several years. And this is a statistic coming from one of our friends in the research area, looking at where this business is going to grow. And as we look at hardware components, whether it be virtual rate technology products, as well as guidance, receivers, precision ag programs, the growth is going to come from a major share of this within this marketplace. When we look at precision farming, and we look at the market share that's there now, monitoring of livestock, whether it's game or whether it's cattle or fish or any of that area, we're looking at smart greenhouses and the explosive growth in that area as far as being able to do not only urban farming as well as container farming. That's a growth area that's going to be absolutely huge. And then as we look at North America, we said that is holding the highest market share, approximately 35% of the overall growth of the industry. And Mark, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we start to look at some of the autonomy as well, when you start to look in some of the smart drones and smart rover devices, it's just, it's hard to even predict how that market's going to expand.
Excellent. So as we look at some of the communication or the pain points within smart agriculture, a lot of it has to do with coverage. We are fortunate on the call to have a lot of our carrier and communication partners on this call, from satellite providers to terrestrial providers to LoRa and low power wide area carriers and communication companies. And as you can see, the number one pain point today for all of our smart ag companies that are out there has been coverage. With 60% of them willing to invest in smart farming technologies as another challenge for them, but coverage issues are the main pain points. And we have to address them. We're looking at, and I know, Mark, you and I talked about this prior, looking at LoRa, looking at low power as a alternative. Many companies looking at Wi-Fi within the farms to be able to communicate back to gateways, looking at edge computing capabilities overall. All of that is tied to how we're looking at being able to communicate that data back to the systems to be able to look at and produce the data that allows these farmers to be able to increase their yields. From an investment standpoint, farmers are willing to pay for the technologies that are going to help them increase those yields and increase productivity. They're ready to do it, and there's some innovative ways that are coming out now as far as getting farmers to look at it as a OpEx model versus a CapEx model. So many organizations who are looking to deploy these products are looking at a services or monthly platform services program to avoid them having to pay the large upfront capital costs required. And Mark, are you seeing that same type of issue?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a question that came in that says, do we think any one particular bearer technology like Sigfox or some of the others is likely to dominate the sector, and why? And the reality is the problem with agriculture is scale, and so you can if you look at the row crop space, you're talking about very large geographic expanse, and you're talking about commodity value of on the order of sort of $700 an acre. And so you have these problems of large geographic expanse with low, sort of relatively lower per acre value. And so you've got to either figure out, okay, what's my density of devices? What's the payload of data? How do I get that data out of the field? But then when you look at something like specialty crops, you're talking about a tenfold increase in per acre value, something like, on the order of $7,000 per acre. And, you're not geographically expensive. You're much more dense in terms of your productive capacity. And so the economics of IoT are very different in those two industries. And then when you get to indoor and glass house and container farming and vertical farming and all the rest of it, it changes yet again. It's completely indoors. The density is quite different. And so it's not going to be any one technology. We're going to have a group of these things that address these different market problems.
But it is amazing, Mark, how much IoT can ultimately affect any one of those models, whether I'm looking at, or I'm spending a lot of time on urban farming and vertical farming, and it's the same sensors, it's the same systems, the only thing missing are the weather changes. But
yeah, that's absolutely right.
Right, and I will announce today on this call that here in the city of Atlanta, we have a group called IoT.ATL, and today we announced an urban farming challenge where a company called ADCO, who makes tractors, are providing us with 6 20-foot containers where we are now asking for people from around the world to supply an application to be selected as one of the 6 teams that will be responsible for building out a 20-foot container on an area around the city of Atlanta called the Beltline. And I'm a judge, and I'm trying to get Mark to be a judge, but it's a wonderful opportunity. If you'd like more information about that, please give me a call, and we can, or contact me, and we can send you more information. It'll also be posted on our website as well as through social media. But it's called the Urban Farming Challenge, and it's a great way of being able to look at technology as well as produce food that will be given to the various food organizations in the city of Atlanta. So there's my shameless plug for the executive committee that I sit on for that. Very, very complicated screen here, but it does give you an idea of the technology roadmap and where we are, and looking at, from an automation and robotics standpoint, where we are today in the 2015 to 2020 brackets, but just how important technology and IoT will be as we move through the next 10 to 20 years. So many of these particular points are going to be around data and big data and the integration of data and how data affects automation and robotics and bioengineering and seeds and all the other things related to planting cycles. and being able to do that. And so this is, if you look at this as a business opportunity for all the vendors and suppliers that are on the call and the people within our ecosystem, there's no shortages of opportunities within technology and IoT for agriculture. And it is a worldwide phenomenon. It will only grow, but you have to look at this from a data standpoint. And I know, Mark, I would assume you agree with me that, you know, as we go through this roadmap, the data and the use of that data is going to be strategically extremely important for where we are.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, if you think about, you know, what's going to drive the adoption of these devices, it's the net result, right? It's the ability to make better decisions in a more timely fashion that ends up either driving my yield or reducing my risk, or, you know, ultimately my ROI improves, and it's that value change that's going to justify and drive the economics of the adoption of the IoT technologies.
Excellent. And so if you look at the opportunities that are here in IoT, there's no shortage of opportunities for all of us. And if you feel that you could participate in more of them, there's more money to be made in this world of smart ag. I mean, if you look at from a crop standpoint to livestock to sensors and the technology around it, you know, we look at, you know, smart water management, soil monitoring, everything related to it, there is no shortages of opportunities. And this is a pretty good intensive screen as far as options are concerned. I bet everybody on this call can come up with more product, more areas and more applications that can be used or are being used today in the space. But it's an amazing area of being able to look at saying, okay, I can participate in this piece. I will tell you that, you know, this year, the biggest thing that I have found, a couple of things that I have found this year as being big, important aspects of it within these opportunities is, I still think, and Mark, tell me if you agree with me, that we're still doing a lousy job or just an okay job on educating. Not only educating vendors and suppliers within the ecosystem, but also farmers and companies that are looking at being able to get into this, as well as college students and college campuses that have agriculture programs. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of colleges are involved in smart ag. I was at the University of Georgia. They have a huge smart ag program there too. But I still think that we owe it to ourselves to do a little bit better job in educating the world of around smart ag. And I think the second thing is that from a systems integration and integration of solutions, services, products, we need to be able to have more companies that are stepping up that are going to be the one company that's going to be able to put it all together. It's not necessarily the carriers don't shoot me. It's not necessarily the hardware manufacturers or the tractor suppliers, but there are, you know, in the United States, there's the bars and integrators out there that have been selling into the family farms for generations. They know those people. We have to look at a way of being able to increase the amount of partners that are in the marketplace that are being able to do the integration of all these various technologies and be able to produce the results that we're looking for. Mark, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your first point about education, I mean, you know, we're starting to see universities are now starting to put together, you know, precision ag, smart ag programs, and even reaching out to us in industry to help them shape the curriculum, which is great. So that's going to get us kind of the next generation of technologists. And then in terms of, you know, educating the market and things, and your systems integrators comment, I think is spot on. You know, when I talk, the gap and why this, I think, hasn't, you know, really come to bear yet is, you know, when I talk to device manufacturers and carriers and things like that, they just don't understand ag. They just don't, you know, they've never operated in the market, the industry. They don't know how it works. You know, and you know, it's all about you know, ROI for the grower. So, you know, it's not like a grower customer is ever going to, you know, go buy some IoT device and turn it on and try to figure out how to get value out of it. They're going to buy systems, right? They're going to buy a cropping system. And in the future, that may even be all-inclusive. That might be everything from seed and chemistry all the way through to their IoT infrastructure, because ultimately it's a decision making tool that flows into a larger process that's all about ROI. So it is a bit of a complicated industry, and we need to have better dialogue between the players to really start to deliver some of these solutions to farmers.
One of the other questions that popped up just now, Mark, and one of the areas that I believe we need to address, and it's a complicated issue, is security. Security of the data, security of the sensors and the products that are out there. Hell, I was at Mobile World Congress Americas, and I saw Wesley Snipes selling a drone killing machine that he said are being sold to corporate farmers that are being spied on with drones so you can knock them out of the air. Are you just crazy? It was absolutely crazy. But who would pay $40,000 for a drone killer? But from an overall standpoint, are you seeing security issues in mobile ag tech today?
Absolutely. And in fact, it's one of the things, we at Climate very much see ourselves in that sort of system integrator view, because we're taking a complete value proposition to the farmer. And one of the requirements that we're putting out to vendors is, some security requirements that they probably haven't seen or they wouldn't necessarily think about in agriculture. But when you think of IoT as sort of the first step to complete automation, and then you start to think through what the ramifications of automating our food production are, it doesn't take you long to realize that there could be some international actors that have a very vested interest in disrupting, another country's food production, for example. So there's some serious security implications as we think through IoT in agriculture. You can think through the application of crop chemistry or herbicides, or the autonomous execution in fields of drones and things like that. I mean, those decisions have to be right, and to make the right decision, you have to have the right data, and that data has to be trusted and secure. So that's why it's not going to be a scenario where we just have these off-the-shelf devices. They're going to have to be vetted. They're going to have to be, identified, secure, and the data from them has to be trusted. And I think we'll probably start to apply AI to that data as well, similar to the way we do, network intrusion detection today. We stop looking for specifics and we start using AI to monitor traffic to look for anomalous behavior and things like that. And I think we'll get there. Ag will look exactly the same. We'll be using AI to scan the data that's coming in from these sensors and be able to detect anomalies and potential security threats and things like that. So people don't often think about security in agriculture, but it's but we actually spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Yep. Yeah, we get a lot of questions about security in ag, and I just keep on saying it's IoT. It's the same scary scenarios that exist in IoT in general, whether it's on manufacturing lines or within smart cities and smart buildings. There's no difference between any of the applications and the areas. You still have to address it.
Yep.
So, all right. So this is the value chain that we see around smart ag and the different levels of opportunities for you to make money in the smart ag space, whether that is in connectivity or manufacturing equipment or within networks and platforms or software applications or sensors of any sort. All of this is the value chain. And in all these, except for the end users, there's money to be made. And if you look at saying you are an expert in one particular box here, you need to go partner with someone. This smart IoT, smart ag IoT area is still hard. It's not easy. You can't buy smart ag IoT in a box. I don't know if Mark and I will still be in the business when that is available in a box. I'm hoping it doesn't, because then we won't make as much money as we can, because we still like it to be a little bit hard for people so that all of us can be able to work together to be able to provide solutions for clients. So one of the things that you have to look at this with this slide is saying, yes, there's a lot of places for us to make money, but you need to all figure out a way to partner together and be able to provide clients, farmers, corporate farms, urban farms with an integrated solution with all those particular pieces of the puzzle put together. When we look at precision ag today, there's many ways of deploying it, and the usage is making farming, more controlled and accurate. With the way we're looking at sensor technology control systems, autonomous hardware and equipment, and engaging that with farm management and communication capabilities, all these are geared towards helping farmers, as I said, increase yield per acre, the only objective and the ROI there. Variable rate technology enables these farmers to control the amount of inputs, whether it's water, fertilizer, the way they're looking at seeds, or looking at GPS soil sampling programs that are out there that will help farmers be able to look at what the soil is doing, how it's made up, what the nutrients are, in order to be able to make more informed decisions, to be able to use that data in the applications, whether it's around seeding or fertilization, let alone pest control systems, the way that's done today too. And if you look at drones, we're seeing them, you can go to a Smart Ag show and you'll see several drone companies that are selling their crop monitoring, farm monitoring, pest control and detection systems, all utilizing drones. Mark, I can only assure you that we could have done some amazing things. When we look at where drones are today, it's incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I just got out of a meeting with a high-tech agricultural drone company last week, and the future is exactly what you'd expect. It's moving from this sort of hobbyist mentality. Every farmer I know got a quadcopter for Christmas 2 years ago, right? And they can go out and they can kind of fly it around and take pictures. But it's moving to a very high degree of sophistication where these are all RTK corrected, drones with flight paths, very, very high tech propeller designs to understand downdraft in the application of chemistry. All the way to complete autonomy, right? Where they literally are just plugged in. They have automatic tenders. They have barcoded, self-loading systems, and not just aerial either, right? This is going to move to terrestrial as well. So you'll have both, aerial-based and ground-based drones doing all kinds of this kind of work. And they're really good for one particular problem we have in ag is the scale problem. And so if I go out and I put a sensor in the ground at a fixed point, the problem becomes, well, how many of these sensors do I need, right, on a large-scale agricultural operation? But if you make that sensor, give that sensor the ability to move around, now you start to solve that problem for me. And I think that's where some of the terrestrial-based drones will really help us.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get to our next polling question. So we have an idea of how are you involved in smart agriculture today. So I'm going to start the voting. You have a minute to get through here. So what is your involvement in smart ag? Is it nothing yet? Are you currently deploying, thinking about it, or needing help navigating the smart ag ecosystem? And then while we're waiting for that, Mark, it is your turn.
Great. Thanks a lot. So just to fill folks in a little bit, I see some of the questions coming in just in general, like, how can we be involved in ag? How can we help, things like that. You really, I would encourage folks to reach out to folks in ag like ourselves. And so, if you look at what Climate Corporation is all about, we were a Silicon Valley startup. We were started a number of years ago by a couple of former Googlers. We were acquired by what is now formerly Monsanto about 5 years ago, and now we're the digital farming arm of Bayer Crop Science, now the largest agricultural company in the world. So What we are is a data science company. And as you can imagine, a data science company needs data, and IoT is a critical part of that. But we are ourselves not an IoT company, so we constantly look to partner with industry providers that have everything from chipsets to devices to communication solutions, and et cetera. And our job is really to put all that together for our customers, so that our customers, if you think of a farmer, all right, they need to put everything in the context of return on investment and how they become a better farmer. And so, looking at a piece of the ecosystem in isolation, like for example, let's use a simple one like a connected weather station. A lot of farmers have connected weather stations, and so they've got a weather station in the farm. It's digital, it uploads to a cloud, and they can see data from the farm. But that weather data doesn't flow into any of their agronomic systems, right? And so the value proposition of these things in isolation is not high. But when you put them together into a cropping system, now all of a sudden the ability to take devices and solutions to the market, to farmers, goes up, and the realization of value by farmers is there too to justify the economics. And then ultimately, our belief at the Climate Corporation is all about what the next big breakthrough in ag is. And while we're going to continue having developments in seed and chemistry and things like that, the big breakthrough is going to come from using data to make better decisions. And our company is really set up to do this for farmers all over the world. We work in both large-scale commercial farms as well as smallholders all around the world who typically only farm an acre or two of crops. So that's a little bit about us. Just real quickly, a little bit about myself. I spent my entire career in Silicon Valley in high technology companies, but I actually grew up on a farm. So I have this interesting background of having an agricultural background. I know farmers. My mom and dad still live and work on the same farm I grew up on. So I grew up in that whole industry and arena. And then I have this background in technology and get to bring the two worlds together every day in my role at Climate. So that's a lot of fun. If we look at IoT around the ag ecosystem, I don't have to cover every one of these, but I know there's a lot of different companies on the call today. We can look at connecting equipment and the different equipment vendors, how we do that. We can look at the logistics around production, all the way through the consumer. There's a lot of talk now and desire to have greater transparency. So how do we use technology in a way that gets consumers, more transparency into the products that they're buying? Obviously, lots in the logistics space. So as we trace product all the way from, the field through the logistics chain, that's both on the supply and the output side. So how do we track products through production, through retail, into the farmer's field? And then how do we track it all the way back out again? So there's a lot of IoT work now in the shipping and containing and logistics spaces around how we track supply and monitor that around the space. Obviously, ag is incredibly expansive, and so staging products as you need them around the world is quite a big money problem. We can look at grain storage and some of the storage containers we use for agricultural products to understand, what the status of the crop is within those storage containers. So, we get things like grain moisture within grain silos to maintain, the health of the product that we've harvested, all the way through to smart chips on seed distribution units, so that we can track, where in the world we have different availability of seed, things like that, all the way through to regulatory. So if we look at the regulatory universe, they want to understand how products are being used, particularly different chemistries, herbicides, pesticides, et cetera. I apologize if folks can hear those sirens. I'm in Atlanta, and that's just the way it's going right now. So as we look around the ag universe, there's a tremendous opportunity, but your point earlier, Steve, is it's really going to be about partnering, because we as an industry have to bring solutions to the space, not sort of point products and rely on others to try and stitch these products together. We're really going to have to work together to build integrated solutions to be successful. Let's see. Here's one quick slide on an interesting case study internally to our internal supply chain. So this is just Brazil, and you know, Brazil is a good use case because it's a very large country with some very difficult logistics in terms of both moving product and supply out to customers, as well as moving crop and grain out to consumers. We started using data, IoT, to track different aspects of our supply chain, and through machine learning and AI techniques, we were able to optimize this to save a lot of miles of trucking, which equates to quite a few tons of greenhouse gas emission saves. So both from a sustainability aspect as well as an ROI aspect and the sheer cost and efficiency of operation. And you can see some of the totals there with you know, over $9 million a year in savings, another 4.5 in cost avoidance, and you can see they're optimized over 100,000 loads through the shipping system with over a $4 million savings. So this is just one country and one part of our you know, supply chain optimization and how we're using IoT and things like that. And it's only going to get better. We're going to apply it to every aspect of our operation around the globe, everything from production to data science and machine learning and optimize everything. So just an interesting use case of how we're starting to apply some of these techniques to get some real meaningful impact to the business. If we look at what today's farm looks like, you know, this may seem futuristic, but it really isn't. Every one of these is in use on some farm somewhere today. So everything from satellite imagery to aerial, whether that be equipment mounted, drone, or you know, all the way to fixed wing aircraft and everything in between. We have terrestrial equipment now that's starting to go autonomous. Everything from small in-row devices to larger implements that are completely autonomous. We've got IoT devices in the field that are doing soil nutrient measurements, soil moisture readings, of course, weather and wind speed and things like that. We've got IoT on our animals. So if you see on the little cows there, we're wearing a little collar. It's basically like a Fitbit for cows. It gives us better insight into how every single animal is behaving. Allows us to identify animals that might be getting sick. Allows us to take those animals out of production earlier than we otherwise would have, which translates to less antibiotic to cure the infection and faster turnaround time for the cow. So you end up with much healthier cows, much healthier herd, less use of antibiotics, and in the end, much better production. Then, of course, I mentioned how we connect all the equipment and all the data that's coming off of connected equipment. It's not just tractors either. It's tractors, it's combines, it's sprayers, it's the drones that are flying. It's every kind of mechanized piece of equipment that we're using in ag. And then, of course, all the storage, all the silos and things like that. So it may seem kind of futuristic, but farms today are very rich with instrumentation, and a lot of the instrumentation comes via some flavor of IoT. We take a quick look now. The other thing that tends to surprise people is that this doesn't just apply to larger commercial farms, but it also applies to what we call smallholder farms. A smallholder in ag is typically, we measure in a couple of hectares, so that translates to about 5 acres or less on average. And on average, it's very often 1 or 2 acres that these smallholders are farming. And they can use IoT as well. We have a partner in India, for example, that makes an IoT device that they can send a text message to turn on and off their irrigation valve. If you think of the way irrigation works in India, the way farms work, it's very often that a farmer has a field that's not close to their house. And so they also want to irrigate at night to get the optimal use of water due to evaporation, things like that. Well, that presents a problem. So the ability to just send a text message to turn that on and off really changes the lives of those farmers. And now as we think about it at Climate with an integrated systems approach where we bring in weather data, we can now automatically control that irrigation valve in the context of what the weather forecast would be. So if we expect rain to come up, you would save that irrigation task and rely on the rainfall. We can track accumulated rainfall, really understand what that irrigation program should look like. And so these are all technologies that are going into smallholders as well. One of the images on there is a disease recognition, on a handset, on a handheld mobile phone. This is unlocking technology in a whole new way. And we're looking at, if you think of IoT devices as something that pairs with a mobile phone for backhaul, we can start to do things like tissue analyzers and soil analyzers and things like that are tools for maybe agronomists in the field and things like that to really to help these farmers. So I wanted to just put this in there because IoT is not just a big commercial thing. It applies to smallholder as well. And in terms of scale, you're talking almost 2 billion people on the planet live or work in smallholder farms, and you're talking about hundreds of millions of acres of opportunity here. So I just wanted to always cover that. And then just last slide here, some issues that we see in ag. We talked a little bit about security already. Security is a big problem. We have to have authenticated devices. We have to be able to update firmware securely. We really need to be sensitive about data payloads because of different network capabilities and requirements. Signal penetration in fields is always a difficult one because something that works on a bare field does not always work on a mature crop. Corn goes from popping up out of the ground to 7 or 8, 9 feet tall sometimes. That changes the problems quite a bit. Connectivity is always interesting. Mesh versus star network, cellular, et cetera. Cost of device and data, and of course battery life. These are all things that we tend to tackle in IoT and agriculture. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Steve.
Great. So, Mark, we have about a minute and a half left of this, and I know I'll send out one more polling question right now, just so we have that open as far as what your interests are in smart ag. So, in conclusion, Mark, give me a closing statement.
I think we're just standing at the cusp of a huge huge evolution in ag from using these devices, and I'd encourage the folks that are on the phone today to either reach out to myself or yourself, and it really takes partnership. We're not trying to be a device company or a networking company or any of these things, but we do want to be a solutions company, and there's a huge opportunity here for all of us to take some new solutions and really innovate in this space.
And I think that as we go back to the title of this, it was monetizing in smart ag, and there's going to be a lot of money made by vendors, suppliers, and integrators in this space. I still believe that education, systems integration, security, the use of data is going to be paramount as we go forward in this space. So thank you so much, Mark, for participating in this. Thanks, everybody, for being on this webinar. And as usual, Mark and I could have spoken all afternoon about this, and we're done in 5 seconds. So have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.